This video is brought to you by Zarrakan Productions, an umbrella group composed of multiple shows and an archive of over 5,000 videos covering a wide variety of topics. Please go to zarrakan.com for a complete listing of video links, social media feeds, and opportunities to support our content. Thank you for your time, and may I present another Zarrakan production.
So the Amnesia campaign, there were a couple of challenges associated with that. One of which was it had been quite some time since I ran my own game. So I kind of needed to relearn it. And also at the same time, she's never been through a campaign before or played Jokers. So two people learning a bunch of stuff as we went along. In fact, that's one of the reasons why I introduced a lot of the mechanics gradually as opposed to all at once. Not because of it being overly complex, but because it would be easier on both of us.
And I do appreciate you doing it that way because it was a lot easier to get it.
So there was that. And I kind of had an idea inspired by, cyberpunk and neon and robots and stuff like that. But a lot of this stuff could also have been adapted into a fantasy setting. How I made the choice is by giving Abby the choice. We had a conversation about this early on in the campaign, where I told you that things could have been really different depending on what you had said at the time. And when you had awoken from being knocked out by the EMP grenade, you couldn't see anything. It was at that point I essentially left it up to you what genre you wanted the adventure to be, because it hadn't been chosen at that point. I was waiting to see what you would want. And there was a lot of that throughout the entire campaign, where I would ask you, what do you remember? What do you see? How is this? I would let you create not just the story through your character's actions, but actually have a participating part in creating the backstory of it all, from which I could then mold my portion of it. But at the very beginning, it could have been very different depending on what you did when you couldn't see anything, and in the dark when you first woke up from your being unconscious. And it could have gone to one of two ways. You could have said, I used something in my inventory, essentially. Could have been like, I light a torch. I would have made the entire campaign fantasy. I click on my flashlight. And that could be modern day to sci-fi fantasy level. And you went to one of the walls, and that could have been a point too. So I find a torch and I light it. Or looking for light switches and stuff. That kind of thing. So that was the big first moment in the entire campaign where things could have been very different.
That's interesting, because the only reason I said that was because it was the first thing that came to mind. It wasn't like I didn't so much make a choice as just instinctively say, look for a light switch. It turned out really well. I really liked the story and everything. The system mechanics behind combat and like all the different things that happened were really interesting. So.
Now, there are some things in the story that I had set up prior to like a couple episodes. But for the most part, I bounced off of whatever your contribution was to help guide the story to where it would eventually go. But there, of course, like any adventure, are a lot of things that may have played out differently depending on your choices. So, what questions do you have about the adventure as a whole?
Well, first, maybe not so much a question, but the participation in you asking me questions is like, what do I see, or things like that, kind of threw me off at first. So it was kind of like a deer in headlights moment, and it was like, I don't know. Like
another part of that is by you providing the answer and then me bouncing off of that. Is with this being one of your first introductions to a campaign or role playing in general, is that it would make it easier for you to visualize it.
Yeah, and it did kind of pull me deeper into the immersion was deeper that way. So it did exactly that, which was I liked it. There were some times when it was a little harder to kind of picture something going on, and but that was something on my end of things more than anything. But whenever that came up, it did definitely make it a lot more something I had to think about the surroundings, the events going on, what had just happened, and what I think is going to happen. It did help to kind of pull me in more a lot. But towards the end, it seems like things were getting a little easier with that. I suppose my first question would be, what were some things that should have been obvious to me, but maybe I just kind of overlooked, because I feel like there were some moments when I just kind of missed something completely.
Usually when there is something for you to discover, I would ask you to do a opposed action, or I would hint at it in some fashion.
Okay. So it was kind of like guiding the story towards it anyway.
Right.
A little bit of, okay.
Like, if you didn't find the thing in the cabinet over here, that same thing would be in the cabinet over here.
Okay. So it's... was there anything
sometimes just trying to be forgiving with some of the mechanics, like when you broke, like, I don't know, was it like 4 or 5 tools trying to get through a lock or something?
I do. Yeah. Okay. God, that was awful.
That's an interesting thing about Jokers, is that I don't have any control over the difficulty of actions, because it's all determined by the deck.
Yeah.
But the way around that is you have 4 or 5 sets of extra tools.
Yeah. And then I guess there's probably those times where, like, no matter what you do, it's like I keep messing them up or something. It's like, okay, whatever, just go around. I don't know. Was there anything I was supposed to find that I missed?
No.
No. Okay. Let me see.
Not on your first campaign.
Okay. I got you. Yeah. I was thinking it felt like there were some things that maybe I was supposed to do, and I just okay, so like the roadblock thing. Like, whenever we were escaping the city, trying to get anywhere except the most concentrated population of people being turned into mutants, so, me and Millie didn't die. It kind of felt like maybe there was something at that roadblock I was supposed to do, but I just kind of like froze a little bit there because it does seem like in those situations I feel like a little bit of anxiety for the characters in the situation. It's kind of like, oh shit, what do I do?
The roadblock before Uma and Una got there, or
Before they got there,
Okay.
yeah. Like, I don't know if I was supposed to do something, like go through the roadblock and like.
I mean, you could have gotten out of the car and just ran up to the guard and say, "Hey, I'm so and so. I know some things,"
Mm.
and that would start an entirely different path where you would have been escorted back to the YJS manufacturing facility that you'd come from. They had fortified and been introduced to, I believe it was Holiday, the name of the YGS commander that was still in charge of what was left of them.
Oh, okay, that's right. I think her name came
And what would have happened then is because I still want to get you on to Mali. So what would have to happen then is that you would be escorted back to that facility, probably interrogated. And what would happen is that the mutants would break through the barricade while you're being interrogated
Okay.
down the road. And since communications are down, they don't hear about it until too late. And the IJS facility would again be overrun with mutants, and you'd have to find a way out with Millie.
Okay. So.
And what would happen in that case is that you'd probably meet up with Una and Uma after you got outside the building.
Okay. So, kind of would have led to the same place anyway.
Right.
Just kind of took a little mini shortcut.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So it's like split path scenario.
At that point, I don't have Dr. Blakestone planned out entirely, or really Una and Uma. But I did know I wanted you to meet them and eventually get up on Maui.
Okay. Okay. So, that's a good idea. Shit. Okay. So like, I guess another question is, how do I put this? It's like, like, okay, there, I guess in scenarios involving certain characters and stuff, like,
You can ask about any of the characters you want, sure.
What was it? I guess one of the big questions surrounding the characters, like Athena, essentially, like, I don't know, it almost felt like I said some of the wrong things at the wrong times or something, or should have done something. Would that have affected the story in a different way, would you say? Like, I mean, or is it kind of almost like the split path scenario where no matter what I said or did, the ultimate outcome would have been?
Her ultimate outcome was to get free,
Okay.
and then kill you.
Okay, so there would, like, especially
because
like
at that point, it's she's in her mind, at least, she has suffered for so long.
Okay, so it's kind of
My mother abandoned me to these strangers. And who've been poking and prodding me for the last, 25 years or something like that?
Yeah. It was actually 25 years. That was such a sad story.
She knows that you're not her mom, not actually. You're the current occupant of your mom's body. She knows your brain is fried. I mean, she had access to the same facility you did while you were there, so she's going to know.
Mm-hmm.
But at that point, I mean, it doesn't matter. I want my revenge.
No matter what.
Right. It doesn't matter if this person's my mom or not. She looks like my mom. That's good enough.
Okay.
So there was no situation in which you could have been mother and daughter with no problems.
Okay, so there was no happy ending there. It was always going to end pretty tragically.
Right.
And it was such the emotions I feel from that are very confusing. They're very contradictory because it's like, Jesus, fuck, like, this was a creation of mine that was misguided, and I felt like maybe there was more I should have done to help or something, but it's like, at the same time, murder robot, it's like, Jesus. And that robot made me very angry at times. I feel like maybe that was kind of the point in some ways. I don't know. It was a very, very split emotion kind of thing. I don't know what to call it, but it's both very personal, like very sad, especially like that stuff at the end with the the final words of Athena, and at the same time knowing this murder robot just tried to eat me pretty much. It's like, like, damn, I almost feel bad for ripping your face off now. Like, Jesus. Almost. Fuck you, robot. Fuck you. Poor murder robot. As far as companions go, more focusing on like the vats in the Yellow Jacket system manufacturing plant thing. How do I put this? Like, were each of those possibly different? Sorry. How do I put this? Were those all pretty much just like different possible companions, or was there a different story twist? Do you think, like, per? Because I remember there were like 3 or 4 different choices of people I could have pulled out, and I'm sure the possibility of just leaving them alone completely was there too.
It was. From the start, I wanted your character have a romantic interest of some kind.
Okay.
That you, of course, have no memory of, but it would be a romantic interest of some kind. Initially, the plan was for when you get picked up by YJS and from Orto and brought to the facility on Lacanas. It was initially planned at some point that it might be that your girlfriend helps break you out of the place.
Okay. That's interesting.
So that may have been a possible scenario. But when we got to the vats and I was describing them, and he broke Millie's open, I was like, okay, there we go.
Okay.
There's your girlfriend.
Okay.
You don't know it yet, but she's going to be.
Okay, so it's like everything kind of works itself out. That's cool. And I am glad I broke Millie's tank. Because worked out pretty well. Although I guess the
In
story.
terms of the character itself, Millie herself was always going to be um, a person involved in this story. Which tube you broke essentially chose the avatar for that character.
Okay. Okay.
So if you chose a bird person, Millie would be a bird person. If you chose a human, Millie would be a human person.
Okay. That's
But
pretty
it
cool.
would still be Millie.
Still be Millie. Okay. Yeah, I kind of wondered about that because I almost wondered if I should have freed more people, but I also didn't
Oh,
want to
well,
die
I
at the same
mean,
time.
you could have freed more people, but you would have been attacked a lot sooner, too.
Okay. Yeah. So kind of a good. Yeah. Okay. Hey, it just some of those situations are so tense, and it's like, oh, I don't want to die. At the same time, it's like I want to help the people, but maybe don't want to die. And I was considering going back at some point, but then like the mutant invasion, kind of. Oh. So, was there any point where it looked like things were going to go too far off the rails? Was there any sense of like, it's not supposed to be like this or anything? Or...
Not really. I kept the world small on purpose to help both of us.
Okay, okay, so it was.
I mean, you had the Phoenix Nest on Orto, and then you had Dr. Blake Silver's base on Maui, and then Lacanus and Icarus. So a very small solar system with only like one city, Alice,
Okay.
and one YGS facility. So there wasn't a whole lot of places to go to begin with.
Mm.
So it wasn't necessarily a straight path to Maui, but it was straight enough to allow variation.
Okay. Okay. Oh.
So not quite an open world, but the skybox is big enough that you don't notice.
Okay. Yeah, it seems like there were some peripheral things talking about, like Earth and other places.
I mean, if you hadn't gone completely off track, I just would have made up more shit.
Makes sense.
I mean,
Okay.
I knew just about enough ahead of time to know how far we could get in a single session before cutting it off before we went to the next one. Like I was marking beats the entire time. Like the beat for the first one, flashback would be the first time you met Dr. Akane at the Phoenix Nest, and the next beat after that would be escaping the YGS facility, and the next beat after that would be getting to your apartment, having the big reveal, and running out of the apartment to flee into the city.
Okay.
So that was flashback, error code, and Athena.
Okay.
And then there was escape, where you're trying to escape, and the end beat hit with that was to meet up with Una and Uma Puma.
Okay.
And Showdown was, of course, the last episode. The beat was that of just being the death of Athena.
Okay. Yeah.
So there were still beats planned out, but they could have happened differently if you were to do other things. It just would have made it up as I went.
Okay. So it's kind of. That's pretty. I guess. I don't know that I have any more questions, but I think that I just need to state it again. This was a really, really emotional kind of emotional and a very edge of the seat kind of adventure thing. And, I really appreciate you putting that together and everything. So.
You're welcome.